it's Liz Yuille from Old Stables Crafts. Thank you very much for joining me again today. And today is One Stamp at a Time Block Hop Day. Yay! And we're doing Spring Fling. So it's a fairly open theme, but I am using the Beauty Abounds bundle. So it's the stamp set and the matching dies. There are masses and masses of dies. There's also the other large die. Now you can obviously cut these apart as well, so you don't have to think of that as just one large die. I will be using them as one large die, but you don't have to. And there's nice greenery you can add and lots of little butterflies. So a huge set, 20 dies. Amazing. And then the stamps as well. I'm using a couple of the stamps, although predominantly I'm doing die cutting. But the main thing that I'm doing is going to be showing you a technique. So it's a messy technique. So I will at various points be wearing my gloves. In fact, I might put those on now so that they are on. And I'm going to be using, what am I going to be using? I'm going to be using Brusho. That's what it's called. One day my brain may come back. So I'm using Brusho, and I've therefore got a spritzer, and I've filled the spritzer with water, and I'm going to add a little bit of the champagne mist because I want to add some sparkle, just some subtle sparkle. Now with the mist inks, paints, whatever we are calling them, you do need to shake them before you use them because the shimmery bit drops to the bottom of the pot. So just a sort of dribble of that, and then pop the lid back on and give it a good shake. You can use alcohol if you would rather, but for this technique you want water. But you can mix these in alcohol as well. You just have to make sure they're well shaken because these are water-based inks. So obviously alcohol and water don't particularly mix well. So I have picked, and aren't I being rotten? I'm not showing you the project, but that will kind of spoil it. So I've picked the Brilliant Red, the Gamboge and the Yellow, and I'm just going to add some of those to, this is the top of a 12 by 12 plastic box, and I'm just using that as my thing to catch the all the ink that's going to be made in. You don't need a huge amount of these inks. I'll come back to why I'm using a little more than you necessarily need in a moment. But so that's that. And then you get your spritzer, make sure you're spritzing it in the right direction, as in not at yourself, and it activates the ink. And it goes all lovely colours. Now I am using, as I say, slightly more than I necessarily need because I'm going to use gloss paper. So this is the gloss white paper, and I'm just splodging it, that's a technical phrase, in the ink and seeing what I've got, and then you can move it around a bit more. Now obviously the more you move the cardstock around in the ink, the more the ink colour will become one. But something to bear in mind, and this is peculiar to the gloss card, is that the colours will dry paler because the gloss effect is partly created by having a kind of pastel background. Now it does dry reasonably quickly, but I'm going to just add a little more of the red because, as I say, it's going to dry lighter. And then you can add some more water to that. And I don't know if you can see, let me see if I bring it up, whether you can tell that you can see there is actually shimmer in there. I can't unfortunately see whether you can see, if you see what I mean. So that is how you do that. Now I am going to bring in another piece because I don't want to waste the ink. So I've got another piece of this gloss card, because why would you want to waste good ink? So I'm just going to kind of use it up. There we go, that's probably about as used up as I can get. And then again, I'm going to come in with gamboge this time and just add a bit more and spray that. And I've got water going everywhere now. So that will be obviously a bit more orange than the one that we've got the brilliant red on. And again, we can sort of move it around and then you can drip one onto the other. So just have fun with it. You're going to get different backgrounds every time. Yeah, don't expect it to be always the same. So I'm going to put that to one side and remove my gloves, and in the process get ink all the way out my sleeve, or not my sleeve, my hand. But that's all right, it wipes clean quite nicely. And here's one I prepared earlier, and as you can see, it's gone quite a lot more pastel. If I bring in, this is how it starts life, and it dries more pastel. So that is because of the quality of the cardstock, because it's got that white in it. So at this point, I would be grabbing my fine detail large butterfly and die cutting it, but I have done a Blue Peter and I have prepared one earlier because I've also used the larger one to die cut from black foil, and this is what you end up with if you... I am covered in glimmer. If this is what you end up with when you've attached one to the other. It does take a bit of time to do, which is why I've done a bit of a Blue Peter. So the card we are going to then be making is this. So once you've done your colouring and your die cutting, it's actually not a difficult card to put together. So I've got my piece of Whisper White, which is cut at, I want to say 5.5 by 3 3/4, but the measurements will all be on my blog post, so don't worry too much about that. I've brought in a piece of scratch paper just so that I can overstamp, and we're using, I kind of guessed the colours, so I did a what colours are these going to be in Stamping Up Colours, and I've gone for So Saffron, Petal Pink, and just a little bit of Blackberry Bliss, just to bring in the darker background. So the So Saffron I'm going to use with the largest of the bokeh dot stamps, and I'm inking up and then stamping, and I'm doing some off the edge and then doing some that are second generation. And do remember to turn your stamp so that you don't end up with everything pointing in the same direction. And if you do ink up and then stamp over the edge, don't then use the same stamp for your second generation, because you'll get this line. So stamp off again before you do your second generation, because yeah, the line is not something we necessarily want. So that's all our So Saffron done. And oops, one of my lights has decided it's going to droop, so we'll make that not droop anymore. Then Petal Pink, which is the slightly orange tinge pink. And again, I'm just going to stamp some first and some second generation. And we're just filling in the background. There is no right or wrong, and apparently no brain. Just remember that if you've stamped off the edge, you then need to re-ink before you do a second generation, otherwise you will get a line. And then just there. So that's our Petal Pink, and then I'm going to kind of ignore where that is, and not, as in not worry about it, and go Blackberry Bliss. And I just want a little bit of Blackberry Bliss, and I'm using, all of this will be second generation, because I just want a bit of a darker background in places, nothing too much, but just not, I don't want it just the pale colours. So I went Blackberry Bliss just because I felt I wanted Blackberry Bliss really. So for no other reason than that. I have used dimensionals. I've got dimensionals on the back, which I will... So I've used my little tip of, well, not my tip, but my team member Baz Patel's tip to draw a line on the back of your dimensionals so that you can see which ones you've left on and which ones you've taken off. Such a great idea. So, a small amount of liquid adhesive on the back. I pop a bit down the middle just for good measure. Don't really need it, but just for good measure. Pop this on the card front. Actually, this might be 5 5/8 by 3 7/8. Anyway, the dimensions will be on my blog post, which, as I say, is linked below. Then all we've got to do is remove these little backings, which, because they've got lines on, I can see. Hurrah! Which particularly as I've done a Blue Peter on this, I won't remember where I've put them. So it's much easier to see them when they've got a line on them. So there we go. And the reason I did that after I stuck the mat onto the card front was just in case any of them went over the edge. And then just bend your card, fold your card. I didn't fold my card first because it's much easier to stick something onto something that's flat. And there is the one we've just made. This is the one I made before. And then, just as a bit of fun, with the leftover scraps from the die cutting, I've cut all the little butterflies for a box. So, yeah, just as a little gift box, you could put whatever you want in there. I would suggest probably some white tissue paper first, just to help make it more obvious that there is a flurry of butterflies on there. But, yeah, just a bit of fun. Anyway, do remember to go and have a look at my blog post, because then you can hop along with everybody else in the blog hop. There'll be masses of inspiration. We're all doing this spring fling. So do go and have a look. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If this is the first time you've joined my channel, please do consider subscribing. I post a video most days. Not every day, but most days. Subscribe button is in the bottom right hand corner. If you're in the UK and you would like to shop with me, there's a link to my online store below and obviously over on my website. The host code is also noted below and on my website, and if you use the host code for orders between 20 and under £150, you get to share in the monthly rewards. So just as a little bonus, and that's along with getting my thank you card and thank you gift each month. So thank you very much indeed for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.